I thought I knew everything about my grandmother. I was wrong. Dead wrong. And finding that invitation, it didn't just change my life. It shattered everything I believed about who I am. My name is Maya, and 3 weeks ago, I was just another graphic designer in Seattle, living my quiet little life, designing logos for startups and dating guys who ghosted me after 3 dates. Normal stuff. Boring stuff. The kind of life where your biggest worry is whether your landlord's going to raise the rent again. Then Grandma Rose died. She was 93, sharp as a tack until the very end, and the only family I had left besides my mom. When we went to clean out her house. God, that house. Every room was like a museum of secrets I never knew existed. I was up in the attic, sorting through boxes of old photos and documents, when I found it. This envelope, cream-colored, heavy paper, the kind you use for important things. Wedding invitations. Formal announcements. It was wedged behind a loose floorboard, like someone had hidden it there on purpose. The envelope was addressed to someone named Thomas Crowfeather. I'd never heard that name in my life. But when I opened it, when I saw what was inside, my hand started shaking. Not from fear. From complete, total confusion. It was a wedding invitation. Dated exactly 10 years ago. May 15, 2015. Beautiful calligraphy, expensive paper, the whole 9 yards. And right there, in elegant script, it said, Maya Rose Garcia and Thomas Crowfeather request the honor of your presence at their wedding ceremony. My name. My full name. Listed as the bride. I sat there in that dusty attic for 20 minutes, just staring at this thing. Because here's what you need to understand, in May 2015, I was 18 years old. I was a freshman at the University of Washington. I was dating a guy named Brad who played ultimate frisbee and wore the same hoodie every day for 3 months. I definitely wasn't getting married to someone named Thomas Crowfeather. I'd never even heard that name before. But there it was, in black and white, this whole elaborate wedding planned in my name. The ceremony was supposed to be at the Tulalip Tribal Community Center. The reception at the Hibolb Cultural Center. Places I'd driven past 1,000 times but never been inside. And here's the thing that really got me, the invitation was never sent. It was still sealed in its envelope, with a stamp that was never cancelled. Like someone had prepared it, addressed it, and then, just stopped. I called my mom immediately. She was at work, but I didn't care. I was sitting in my car outside Grandma's house, holding this invitation like it was evidence of some crime I didn't understand. Mom, I said, I need you to explain something to me. Right now. She knew. I could hear it in the silence that stretched between us. That particular kind of silence that happens when someone's been caught. What did you find, Maya? An invitation to my wedding. To a man I've never met. Dated 10 years ago. Want to tell me what the hell is going on? Another pause. Then, come home. We need to talk. The drive from Grandma's house to my mom's apartment felt like the longest 30 minutes of my life. My brain was spinning, trying to make sense of this. Was this some kind of elaborate family joke? Some tradition I didn't know about? Or was this something darker? When I got to Mom's place, she was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee already poured. Her face looked older. Like she'd aged 10 years in the hour since I'd called. Sit down, Mija, she said. This isn't going to be easy. She told me about the debt. About my great-grandfather, who I'd never met, who'd borrowed money from the tribal council back in the 1970s to start a fishing business that failed within 6 months. About how that debt had passed down through the family, growing with interest and cultural obligation, until it became this massive thing hanging over our heads. Grandma Rose, my mom said, she was desperate. The tribal council was threatening to take legal action. And then someone suggested an arrangement. What kind of arrangement? A marriage. Between you and Thomas Crowfeather. His family would forgive the debt, provide a dowry, and you'd be taken care of for life. I felt like I was falling through the floor. You were going to sell me? Like I was property? No, no, Mija. It wasn't like that. In the tribal tradition, it was seen as an honor. A way to heal old wounds, bring families together. Thomas, he's a good man. Successful. He would have treated you well. He's a complete stranger. Not completely. She looked down at her coffee. Maya, there's more. And that's when my world completely collapsed. Thomas Crowfeather, my mom said slowly, is your half-brother. The words didn't compute at first. They just sat there in the air between us, like a foreign language I couldn't translate. What did you just say? Your father, the man I told you about, the one who left when I was pregnant, that wasn't the whole truth. His name was David Crowfeather. He was Thomas's father too. Different mothers, but same father. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. Are you telling me that Grandma Rose was planning to marry me off to my own brother? She didn't know, Maya. Nobody knew. David never told anyone about you. When the tribal council suggested Thomas as a match, they had no idea about the connection. But you knew. I figured it out later. When I saw Thomas's picture, he looked so much like you. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. That's when I put the pieces together. And you didn't tell Grandma? I couldn't. The debt was real. The pressure was real. If I'd told her the truth, it would have destroyed her relationship with the tribal council. We would have lost everything. I was pacing now, trying to process this information. So what happened? Why didn't the wedding happen? I lied. I told Grandma you were too young, that you needed to finish college first. I kept making excuses, pushing it off, hoping something would change. And then, you turned 21, and the pressure got intense. The tribal council started making demands. Grandma was getting desperate. So I told her you'd run away. That you'd left town with some boyfriend and I didn't know where you were. I made her believe you'd abandoned the family. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. You let her think I was a runaway? A disappointment? I was protecting you, Maya. From a marriage that would have been wrong. On every level. But you let her die thinking I was ashamed of my heritage. That I'd turned my back on the family. My mom started crying then. Real tears, not the kind you fake to get sympathy. I know. I know I messed up. But I didn't see any other way. I left that night without saying goodbye. I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with this information. But I couldn't let it go. Thomas Crowfeather. My half-brother. The man I was supposed to marry. I had to find him. It took me 3 days of internet searching, but I found him. Thomas Crowfeather, 32 years old, tribal council member, owner of a successful construction company that specialized in sustainable housing. He had a website, a LinkedIn profile, even a Facebook page with pictures of him at community events. And my mom was right. He looked like me. Not obviously, but once you knew to look for it, you could see it. The shape of his eyes, the way he smiled with one corner of his mouth higher than the other. We had the same hands, long fingers, the same unconscious way of gesturing when we talked. I sent him a message on Facebook. Just a simple request to meet. I said I was Rose Garcia's granddaughter and that I had something important to discuss with him. He responded within an hour. Said he'd been wondering when I'd show up. We met at a coffee shop in Everett, neutral territory. I brought the invitation with me, still in its envelope. Thomas was taller than I'd expected, maybe 6'2", with graying hair at his temples and calloused hands that spoke of real work. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans, work boots that had seen better days. He looked like someone you could trust. You're Maya, he said when he saw me. Not a question. A statement. And you're Thomas. Tom. Nobody calls me Thomas except my mother when she's angry. We sat down across from each other, and I put the invitation on the table between us. I found this in my grandmother's attic, I said. I think you can explain what it means. He picked it up, opened it, studied it for a long moment. I haven't seen this in 10 years, he said finally. I thought your grandmother had destroyed it. So you knew? About the wedding? I knew there was a plan. I knew there was a debt. I knew the tribal council thought a marriage would solve some old problems. He looked at me directly. What I didn't know was that the bride was my sister. Half-sister. Sister, he said firmly. We don't do halves in our family. Our family. God, that's weird to say. Maya, I need you to understand something. When the tribal council first approached me about this arrangement, I said no. I was 22, just starting my business, and I had no interest in an arranged marriage. But they kept pushing, talking about family honor and cultural tradition and healing old wounds. What changed your mind? Your grandmother. She came to see me personally. Brought pictures of you, told me about your life, your dreams, your plans for college. She wasn't trying to sell you off, Maya. She was trying to find someone who would value you the way you deserved to be valued. But it was still an arranged marriage. It was. And I was prepared to go through with it, to make it work somehow. But then, you disappeared. Your mother told everyone you'd run off with some boyfriend. The tribal council was furious. They felt disrespected, like the Garcia family had wasted their time. And the debt? Still there. Still growing. But after you ran away, nobody wanted to deal with it anymore. It became this awkward thing that everyone pretended didn't exist. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process everything. Tom, I need to ask you something. When you agreed to this marriage, did you know who our father was? He was quiet for a long moment. I suspected. When I saw your picture, when your grandmother told me your mother's name, I remembered my dad mentioning a woman named Carmen Garcia once. Just once. He was drunk, talking about regrets and roads not taken. So you knew we might be related? I wondered. But I didn't know for sure until I saw you just now. You have his eyes, Maya. David's eyes. Same as me. And you would have married me anyway? No. If I'd known for certain, I would have told the tribal council the truth. But I was young, and scared, and I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was imagining things. We sat in silence for a while, both of us trying to figure out what came next. The debt, I said finally. Is it still there? It's complicated. Legally, it's probably not enforceable. But culturally, it's still a weight on your family's name. On your grandmother's memory. What would it take to clear it? Money. Or service to the community. Or. He paused. Or a different kind of alliance between our families. What do you mean? Maya, I've been on the tribal council for 6 years now. I've seen how these old conflicts tear communities apart. Families stop talking to each other. Kids grow up not knowing their heritage. We lose our stories, our connections to each other. So maybe this isn't about a marriage. Maybe it's about healing. About bringing people together in a different way. He told me about his work with the tribal council, about programs they were developing to help young people connect with their heritage. About oral history projects, cultural education, community building. We could use someone with your skills, he said. Someone who understands both worlds, who can help us tell our stories in ways that reach beyond our community. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to honor your grandmother's memory. To clear your family's debt not through marriage, but through service. Through using your talents to help preserve our culture for the next generation. I thought about it for 3 days. Thought about my quiet little life in Seattle, my startup clients, my apartment with the view of the parking lot. Thought about my grandmother, who died thinking I'd abandoned my heritage. Thought about my mother, who'd sacrificed her relationship with her own mother to protect me from a marriage that would have been wrong on every level. And I thought about Thomas. Tom, my brother. This man I'd never known existed, who'd been willing to enter into an arranged marriage to help heal old wounds. I called him on a Thursday morning. "I'll do it," I said. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "First, I want to start a podcast. Stories from the community, oral histories, the real experiences of people who've lived in both worlds. I want to give voice to the stories that don't usually get told." "Done." "Second, I want to work with young people. Specifically, kids who are struggling with identity, who feel caught between cultures. I want to create programs that help them see their heritage as a strength, not a burden." "Absolutely." Third, I want to clear my family's name. Publicly. I want people to know that my grandmother didn't fail, that she was trying to do what was best for everyone involved. "Maya," Tom said quietly, "that's not a condition. That's a promise." So I moved back to my hometown. Not to Seattle, but to the community where my grandmother was born. I rented a small apartment above a bakery, close enough to walk to the cultural center where Tom and I would be working together. The podcast launched 6 months later. Voices Between Worlds, we called it. Stories from people who straddled cultures, who'd found ways to honor their heritage while building their own lives. The first episode was about my grandmother, told through the memories of people who knew her, who remembered her strength and her sacrifice. My mother cried when she heard it. The debt was officially forgiven at a tribal council meeting in December. Not because of any marriage or financial payment, but because of service. Because of the work Tom and I were doing together to preserve and share our community's stories. But here's the thing that really changed everything: working with Tom, getting to know him as a brother, as a friend. I started to understand something my grandmother had known all along. Family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to show up for each other. It's about taking responsibility for healing the wounds that get passed down through generations. And sometimes, the most important invitation is the one that never gets sent. The one that forces you to write your own story instead. My grandmother Rose died thinking she'd failed to protect our family's honor. But she didn't fail. She just protected something more important than honor. She protected my freedom to choose my own path. And in the end, that path led me home anyway. Tom and I are planning a community celebration for next spring. Not a wedding, but a gathering to celebrate the stories we've collected, the connections we've rebuilt, the healing that happens when people choose to see each other as family. We're calling it the Unsent Invitation. Because sometimes the most important promises are the ones we make to ourselves. If you've got a story about family, about identity, about finding your way home to yourself, I'd love to hear it. Leave a comment below, and maybe we'll feature your story on the podcast. And if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories like this one, and they're all true. Every single word.